Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is a special broadcast detailing the events of 9/11. As of right now, many people across this country and around the world have been observing 9/11 and what happened that day. People from around the world were on those planes. People from around the world worked in the World Trade Center buildings that collapsed. Today marks the 22nd anniversary of the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, as well as the crash of United Airlines Flight 93. Today is a day that will live in infamy. I want to honor this day as just that, a day that will live in infamy. I was working the Tuesday morning of September 11th, 2001. I was called to the office to be told that a plane had smashed into the World Trade Center building in New York. At the time, a few minutes after I got to the office, I saw another plane slam into the Trade Center. It was a horrific crash, one that I don't want to relive today. So I'm approaching this a little bit different. Is this volume any better? I turned it full blast up. Is this volume any better? Can I get a 5x5, please? Okay, Highway Runner says 5x5. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. As I said, today is the anniversary of the attack at the World Trade Center, September 11th, 2001. The World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the crash of United Airlines Flight 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The September 11th attacks, commonly known as 9/11, were 4 coordinated Islamic suicide terrorist attacks carried out by Al-Qaeda against the United States on Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. The number of deaths, 2,996 people died. A lot of years before this happened, when I was still working and living in San Diego, I got a call from the Navy base, 32nd Street Naval Station in San Diego. A cabbie driving a yellow cab tried to run the barricade at the base. Everyone that came on 32nd Street Naval Station was stopped at one of 4 gates that were open. This was a main gate. The cabbie tried to run. I pulled him over and arrested him. And I issued him a federal magistrate order to appear before a federal magistrate to answer charges of unlawful access to United States Naval Base. The man was slapped on the hand and given a large fine, and he was let go. That man was in San Diego receiving flight training. He was one of the pilots on board one of those airliners that crashed into one of the Trade Center buildings. I later found that out. I found out who he was. And I forwarded my information about him to the FBI, so they would have that information as well. And it was later confirmed that yes, he indeed was in flight training in San Diego, learning to fly jets and small planes. This is what happened. Joseph Vallow is in the chat. I got to guard the front gate where Flight 93 went down. I worked during the night and there was an eerie feeling there, especially when you heard all the cries. Checked. Coyotes. I can appreciate that. I've been to many cemeteries in the middle of the night. What I'm going to play for you now is the audio recording and you're going to hear what happened with American Airlines Flight 11.
Can you see a guy at about 4,000 feet, about 5 east of the airport right now? Looks like he's... Yeah, I see him. That's another situation. What kind of airplane is that? Can you guys tell? I don't know. I'll read it out in a minute. Another one just hit the building. Wow. Wow. Another one hit it hard. Another one just hit the World Trade. The whole building just came apart. Holy smokes.
Another building came apart. Holy smokes. Yes, this did happen on September 11th, Tuesday, 2001. There was a gentleman on board United Airlines Flight 93 that crashed into the middle of a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The man that you're going to hear the voice of, his name is Todd Beamer. Cynthia Bowers is an operator, and Todd Beamer talks to Lisa Jefferson, who took the final call from United Flight 93. She recalls her conversation with passenger Todd Beamer.
All over. There was a soft-spoken, calm gentleman on the other end. He told me that there's 3 people that have taken over the flight. At that point, I asked him his name. He told me Todd Beamer. He was from Cranberry, New Jersey.
Did you make a conscious decision not to tell Todd about the World Trade Center? Why?
Yes, because I wanted him to have hope. I wanted him to think that he still had a chance. I didn't want him to feel like it was just totally hopeless and he definitely didn't have a choice and he knew he was going to die. I didn't want him to have that feeling.
When he wanted to pray, was your sense then that he knew that?
Yes, I did. I felt that he knew at that time because he had said, "Oh, Jesus, help us." And then he said, "Lisa, would you recite the Lord's Prayer with me?" And I knew that he knew at that time that it wasn't much left for him to do.
What do you think that this country needs to know about the men and women who were on board Flight 93?
They're all heroes in my eyes. They really are. They all pitched together and they did what they thought was the best thing to do at that time. And I feel that Todd played a great role in that because when he told the guys, "Are you ready?" I assumed that they were waiting on his cue. Then they responded to him and he said, "Okay, let's roll."
And would you please help me welcome his wife, Lisa Beamer, here tonight.
She called me that Saturday morning. I told her, I said, "You have 2 boys, David and Andrew?" She said, "Yes, yes I do." I said, "You're expecting your 3rd child?" She said, "Yes. He told you all of that." I said, "Yes, he did. And he wanted me to let you know that he loved you and his family very much." And I gave her a message and kept my promise.
Like you see on your screen, that was a CBS News interview. Every one of these videos that I'm showing you today, you can find on our program description a link to those videos and you can watch them again. The next one is this. This is very important.
And 2 words to think about tonight. Let's roll. Some say those words, spoken by Todd Beamer aboard Flight 93, started the war on terror on American soil, and that put an end to a potential second attack on our nation's capital. His father lived on the First Coast then, and just this week I spoke to him about his son's heroic legacy.
This is Lisa Jefferson, shift supervisor. I understand your plane's been hijacked?
Yes, I'm Todd.
I don't know what just happened. We lost audio there. Hold on. Just a second, folks. I'm trying to kind of resolve this thing. I don't know what happened. I found it.
I'm Todd Beamer. I'm on United Flight 93.
2 words with enormous consequence.
Let's roll.
Immortalized in movies, Todd Beamer fighting back against the terrorists. Flight 93 crashed into a field in Pennsylvania, saving who knows how many lives.
I believe then, I believe now that their target was our nation's Capitol building.
And it was close.
Because at jet speed, the terrorists were only 20 minutes away from reaching their intended target.
Todd's dad, David Beamer, living then in Ponte Vedra.
You know, we have a whole generation now that wasn't born on 9/11.
He says we must make sure they know the courage of Americans on that day. He wishes everyone would visit the field in Pennsylvania.
The Flight 93 National Memorial, which is now a national park, is terrific.
For every victim,
There are large walls, stone walls, polished.
Are you there?
and his piece, he finds it in the call Todd made from the plane, picked up by a telephone operator in Chicago.
Our Father, who art in heaven.
They asked to pray the Lord's Prayer, okay? In fact, not too long ago they had been doing some special Bible study on that model prayer.
David says his family counts on their Christian faith.
Todd's soul is okay. He's been having great days every day these last 20 years, okay? Unlike some of the rest of us.
For David, the memory is still raw, seeing the terrorists back then.
I remember vividly in the days after 9/11, our enemies celebrating and dancing in the street.
But then he says, think about it, for 20 years.
No more 9/11s here in our homeland. None, zero.
And he credits brave American men and women.
Carried on the fight, sacrificing greatly, blood, limbs, their very lives.
But now, 20 years after 9/11, for the first time, his anxiety is peaking again. Watching the scenes, the mock coffins with American flags, for example, in Kabul.
That puts me on edge.
But from that anxiety, one last thing I wanted to point out.
There is something you told me 20 years ago that has changed my life every single day.
He told me the very last words he said to his son.
I said, hey, here's a big hug. I love you, Bean. Be careful. See you later.
And so now, every text, every call in my family ends with, love you.
Thank you for inspiring me. I'll never forget you told me that.
As long as you do it every chance you get, you won't miss that last chance.
Jeannie Blaylock, First Coast News, on your side.
United Airlines Flight 93, a phrase, only 2 words, was made famous that day because of this brave man, Todd Beamer, decided he was not going to just roll over and let the terrorists do whatever they wanted to. Whatever happened to the pilot, and we're going to discuss a pilot in a minute, I knew the man. I lived in Littleton, Colorado, not more than 1.5 miles from Todd Beamer. Whatever happened to Todd Beamer, I would hope that he was no longer alive before the plane crashed. Because Todd Beamer and the rest of the crew of Flight 93 stood up and said, we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to take it anymore. How many times as of late have we talked about standing up for principles, standing up for right and wrong? That is what happened this day, September 11th, 2001. The final call from Flight 93, Todd Beamer. Cynthia Bowers talks to operator Lisa Jefferson, who took the final call from United Airlines Flight 93. She recalls her conversation with Todd Beamer. I played the videos of people that were involved that day. There's one more that I want you to see. This was Todd Beamer's wife.
We went to Wheaton College. He was a really good athlete. I knew, he had a lot of friends and he was well respected. I always wondered if I'd ever get married because I'm a very strong person, and I could never imagine someone who would be strong enough to stand up to me at times and yet willing to yield on other things, and it made our marriage work pretty well. As a dad, he was, I always told him, I said, I may complain about, our relationship sometimes or get on your back about things because that's what happens in marriages, but I can't think of a time I ever complained about the kind of dad he was.
Happy birthday to you, Daddy.
He was just real involved with his kids, and he loved them, and the minute he walked in the door, from the minute he walked out the door again, he was willing to invest all his time into what they wanted to do.
Did you another kiss for Daddy? Say happy birthday kiss, Dad.
Todd had the experience growing up with Christian parents and having the story of Jesus introduced to him at a very early age. And, when he was a young child, he made a decision that Jesus was not only for his parents and for his family, but it was for him too. And I think throughout his growing up in junior high and high school and college, it became a process of learning how Jesus could walk with him every day and affect his decisions every day. A lot of people talk right now just because of the world situation about faith and about, turning to God, but that wasn't something Todd turned to at the last minute because he didn't know what else to do. He really tried every day to make decisions that would lead him closer to God and closer to what God wanted for him.
Federal investigators say 32-year-old Todd Beamer helped overpower the hijackers on United Flight 93. The plane, which crashed into a Pennsylvania field, may have been bound for the United States Capitol.
I didn't know what Todd's role was for 3 days. I knew what had happened on the flight. I knew the passengers had staged an uprising, but I didn't have any specific information on what Todd did. And a lot of people during that time said, "What do you think happened? Do you think Todd was involved?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm sure Todd was involved." He was a courageous guy, and he was a competitor, and he was someone who certainly wouldn't let someone hurt him or himself without doing something about it. And obviously I knew that Todd's perspective would have been knowing that even if he wasn't going to come out of this, that this wasn't the end for him, it was just the beginning.
We have seen it in the courage of passengers who rushed terrorists to save others on the ground. Passengers like an exceptional man named Todd Beamer. And would you please help me welcome his wife, Lisa Beamer, here tonight.
Oh, it's been a great source of encouragement for me. I've had so many people come up or email me or call me and say, I was on the Capitol steps that day, or my son works at the White House, or different people just specifically. I was actually at the White House yesterday and had numerous staff people come up and just shake my hand and say thank you. And, I know in so many ways that Todd's death was not in vain, but to be able to look at people who really feel like they owe their life to him is a unique blessing. There's so many ways for people to die, and I feel like God really blessed Todd by giving him something so valiant to fight for at the end. And the other piece that Todd did that was unique, that we know about, we don't know what other people did, but Todd asked that operator to pray the Lord's Prayer with him. As I was thinking through the Lord's Prayer, the biggest piece that stuck out to me is the part about asking God to forgive your trespassers as you forgive those who trespass against you. And I just thought, man, Todd was asking forgiveness for these people at the time. And I don't know, if that whole thought was going through his head, but it's certainly something for me. I haven't even really thought about, the anger and all that goes along with the whole thing for me, as far as what those people did to Todd and how they, destroyed my family here on earth. But Todd at that time was able to have the presence of mind to say, you know what, God's going to forgive these people and I need to forgive them too. And that piece was just really big for me to look at and say, good example, Todd. I'm going to try my best to pick it up from there and do the same.
This has been a terrible week with many tears but also has been a week of great faith.
I just think that our nation has been a little bit awakened to the fact that life isn't all about, making money and being successful and even being happy. But it goes a lot deeper than that, and I hope that people just use this opportunity when, obviously everyone's got to be thinking about the bigger picture right now, because everyone's security, whether you were touched personally or not, has been shaken by this. And my advice to people would just be to look deep inside and ask the tough questions as far as, if you were taught on that plane, what would you have done? If you were sitting in my chair right now, what would your perspective be? And would you be able to just have the eternal hope that I have? And if you can't, then I ask you to sit down and open your Bible and ask God to show you. Last week and this week have just been such extremes of pain and joy that I can't even explain to you, obviously how deep my pain is, but also how great my joy is, and being able to know and being able to show the world who Todd was, but also being able to, more importantly, have Todd's example and hopefully my example and my reaction to this whole thing just be a light for people. And God's just given us both an amazing venue right now to share why we're here and what our perspective is and how it's different because we know him.
Look, he spins. Can you make him spin? Yeah? There he goes.
I can deal with things that are coming up in 5 minutes right now. I can deal with thinking of eternity with God, and certainly, looking forward to seeing Todd again someday. But, when I look at all those years in between right now, it's overwhelming to me, and all the, the tasks of raising my sons and those things, and the loss is impossible for me to deal with right now. But being able to have that eternal perspective, I just keep saying to myself when I start to think, this isn't going to be the same, or what about this? I just say, look up, look up. That's why I'm able to sit here right now and talk to you. Because if I did not have that big picture hope, I'd probably be up in my bed right now. That's the mantra that I've kind of been running through my head. Just look up and look at God and look at the hope that you have in him.
Beautiful. Said by a loving wife, a true patriot. I appreciate this information that she gave us. God bless Mrs. Beamer. She said, I didn't realize he was saying goodbye. Wife of 9/11 Tower 2 victim recalls their last conversation. It's heartbreaking to see the photos of him. 20 years on his daughters have grown up and his wife has aged, but he is frozen in time. September 11th, 2001, 8:14 a.m. Eastern Time. Location, World Trade Center, New York. The Pentagon, Shanksville, Pennsylvania. United Airlines Flight 93, piloted by Captain Jason M. Dahl. Jason M. Dahl. This is another person whose name will live on forever. I knew him. Like I said, I drove by his home more times than I want to count on. He lived in a suburb of Littleton, Colorado. I lived not more than a mile away from him. I passed his house many times on the way to one of my friends' houses that lived there in Ken Carroll Ranch. I met Jason Dahl. His home, Ken Carroll Ranch, Littleton, Colorado. He was age 43 on the day he died. His occupation was captain, United Airlines. He was piloting jets, and his piloting jets was the realization of a lifelong dream. Captain Jason Dahl rearranged his September 11th flight schedule so he could take his wife to London for their upcoming 5th wedding anniversary. When he boarded Flight 93 that morning, he carried with him, as always, a small box of rocks, a long-ago gift from his son. After 16 years with United, Captain Dahl was a standards captain, training and evaluating other pilots, in addition to flying assigned trips. Dahl joined the Civil Air Patrol in his native San Jose, California at age 13, and flew solo 3 years later, age 16. The California native earned his private pilot's license at age 16. He graduated from San Jose State University with a degree in aeronautics operation. After 16 years with United Airlines, Dahl was a standards captain. 16 years with the company. This job provided him more time at home with his wife and son from a previous marriage. His son, Matt Dahl, was one of many, many American children whose world went dark on Tuesday, September 11th, 2011. Dahl's father, Jason, was a United Airlines pilot whose hijacked plane slammed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Now, Matt Dahl is a fine young man who married his high school sweetheart and is now living in Boulder, Colorado. He is a scientist who credits his fond memories of his father and the love of his mother, Gail, and others for seeing him through. And this weekend, "22 years later, we remember him. Matt Dahl, 10 years after his father died, went to visit Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 10 years after his father died, he visited the site of the plane crash that killed his dad long before that. Matt said he still has apprehensions about flying, and he admits he shies away from the number 93. Jason was piloting United Airlines Flight 93 before it was hijacked and crashed, killing everyone aboard. Matt still ponders that final flight of his father's. "I have no proof of otherwise, so I'd like to think my dad was dead long before the airline plane hit the ground." Matt is convinced that the hijackers were aiming for Washington, D.C. before courageous passengers took a stand. "I think that the passengers on that airplane did a wonderful service for this country." Matt has never visited the crash site before September 11th, 2011. He said, "I used to say if I wanted to see a big hole in the ground, I'd go dig one in my backyard." In 2011, Matt changed his mind. "I think I'm going now more to witness it as a hallowed place where these 40-some-odd people came together and did something wonderful, even if it did end in tragedy." Jason Dahl and his family again lived in Ken Carroll Ranch. Matt was 15 when he spoke bravely at the packed funeral for his father. "I've definitely experienced anger as a result of 9/11. Looking back on that dreadful day. United Airlines Flight 93 was a domestic scheduled passenger flight that was hijacked by 4 Al-Qaeda terrorists on the morning of September 11, 2001. The hijackers planned to crash the plane into a federal government building in the U.S. capital of Washington, D.C. September 11, 2001 began as an ordinary day late summer. As the sun rose, fair weather and blue skies. It prevailed over much of the country, and thousands of other commercial airlines flying and were preparing for flight. But in less than 2 hours' time, this seemingly routine day was transformed when 19 terrorists boarded and hijacked 4 commercial airplanes to attack America. What more can I say? Todd Beamer and his fellow passengers tried to regain control of his aircraft after they learned about what had happened at the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. If they had to go down, they were not going to allow that plane to destroy any other lives. According to that Jefferson operator, Beamer's last audible words were, "Are you ready? Okay, let's roll." Nearly 3,000 people were killed when the hijacked planes were flown into the World Trade Center in New York City, the Pentagon near Washington, D.C., and American Airlines Flight 93 in the Pennsylvania countryside outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The Shanksville, Pennsylvania site shows the drama of an airliner slamming into the earth at more than 500 miles per hour. 500 miles per hour. What a day. This was a day that was hard for me. Wearing a uniform, a badge, knowing what my duty was, and helping to evacuate downtown Denver. Even though that I lived just outside Denver, I didn't know Denver had a World Trade Center. So after I finished my other duties and saw the second attack on the Trade Center, I was asked to go out and help and assist in the evacuation of downtown Denver. And we kept it evacuated for 3 days. One of my neighbors was a United Airlines pilot. He was a general in the U.S. Air Force. He flew fighter plane that day. President Bush, with assistance from the FAA, grounded all airplanes, grounded all airliners for 3 days. The United States Air Force fighters were the only ones allowed in our airspace. No one even realized at the time that there might even be another attack. No one understood that it was possible, but they were prepared for that. They were prepared for that eventuality. It was a sad day in America's history. Let's roll. The sailors and Marines on board USS Bellewood, LHA-3, in 2011 spelled out the quote, "Let's roll," on their flight deck. Flight 93 did not arrive at the hijackers' intended target, the nation's capital, because of the selfless, courageous people, actions of the 40 passengers and crew that were on board Flight 93. When Flight 93 was hijacked, the passengers and crew members used earphones on the plane to contact authorities and their loved ones. A total of 13 passengers made 37 phone calls. Through their phone conversations, they learned of the first two attacks and subsequently took action. Pushed to the back of the plane by hijackers, the passengers and crew took a boat and decided to stand up and fight. To fight back and try to regain control of the airplane. As a result of phone calls made from on board Flight 93 and from the cockpit voice recorder that was recovered from the crash site, we learn of the struggle the passengers and crew member had with their hijackers, which began in the skies over western Pennsylvania and ended with a over 500-mile-per-hour high-speed crash of the plane in a reclaimed strip mine near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Just 18 minutes flying time from Washington, D.C. Countless lives were spared thanks to these people. 40 people and crew of Flight 93 who stood up and said, "We're not going to take it. Let's roll." Lives were spared on the ground. Lives were spared in Washington, D.C., or anywhere else where these attackers were going to take their planes. Lives were spared thanks to their heroic actions, but all on board Flight 93 were lost. A total of 13 passengers made 37 phone calls. Isn't that amazing? It is completely amazing. Over in Shanksville, Pennsylvania today, there is a memorial. There's a big memorial, and there's some people, including congressmen and senators from various states in the country, that said that they did not want the United States government to allocate any money for a memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. They did not want to allocate any money for a memorial at the crash site near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Today, there stands a memorial, a long wall that has been erected with names of every passenger and crew member who lost their lives in Shanksville that day. Lost their lives in Shanksville that day. I decided to do this tribute. I had something else that I was going to do today. As a memorial to this occasion, but I decided not to do that. I decided to do my own memorial. On September 24th, 2002, Congress unanimously passed the Flight 93 National Memorial Act, PL 107-226, People's Law 107-226. The Act established a memorial at the September 11th, 2001 crash site, United Airlines Flight 93 in Stony Creek Township, Somerset County, Pennsylvania, designating the final resting place to honor the passengers of crew of Flight 93. The Act also designated the National Memorial as a unit of the National Park System. The design for Flight 93 National Memorial was chosen from more than 1,000 entries in an international competition. Because there were people from around the world that were on those flights who lost their lives. The design was chosen from those 1,000 entries that includes submissions from 48 states in this country and 27 countries. The memorial provides a series of visitor experiences, beginning with a 3-mile journey through a landscape that still hints at its mining past, leading visitors to an overlook located on the flight path, along with a visitor center and learning center down to the crash site. The winning design was awarded to Paul Murdoch Architects of Los Angeles, with Nelson Bird Waltz of Charlottesville, Virginia, in 2005. The memorial features were dedicated in 3 phases. In 2011, the Wall of Names was dedicated, which features the names of the 40 passengers and crew members inscribed on a wall of polished white marble. Polished white marble panels erected along the flight path. The Memorial Plaza is a 1/4-mile northern boundary to the crash site, which is the final resting place of the passengers and the crew members, leading to the Wall of Names. In 2015, Flight 93 National Memorial Visitor Center and Learning Center opened, providing an even deeper level of information about this seminal day in history through engaging exhibits and educational programming. In 2018, the 93-foot Tower of Voices was dedicated, marking the final phase of construction and completion of the permanent memorial. In 2010, the final chimes were hung and dedicated in the tower as a tribute in sound to forever commemorate the voices of 40 heroes. Flight 93 National Memorial is a place to be inspired by the courageous actions of 40 passengers and crew members of Flight 93, and a place of peaceful reflection. The living memorial landscape is a tribute to the resilience of the passengers and crew members that will forever honor their actions on 9/11. At sea with USS Bellewood, more than 500 sailors and Marines assembled on the ship's flight deck to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of September 11th terrorist attacks on the United States by spelling out the now famous quote from Todd Beamer, "Let's roll." Todd Beamer is one of those heroic passengers that we talked about, who lost his life in Shanksville, along with his fellow passengers and crew members, as they tried to regain control of their plane. Many believe the terrorists were headed for D.C. The sailors, those sailors that were on board the Bellewood, right here. Those sailors and Marines were deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. The 40,000-ton amphibious assault ship is a lead element of a 3-ship amphibious readiness group. The ship carries a crew of 1,100 sailors and more than 1,300 Marines of the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit Special Operations Command based at Camp Pendleton, California. The ship can use a combination of helicopters, AV-8B Harrier planes that you see on the right side of the flight deck. Right there, I'm sorry. Boy, I screwed that up, didn't I? There it goes. I don't know how that screwed up. I'd sure love to know. But you can see the helicopters over here on the left side of the flight deck. Over here on the right, you can see the Harriers. The Harriers are vertical launch attack aircraft. In vertical launch, they act like a helicopter, but they are indeed an airplane that can carry Marines and Army personnel to take on the enemy. This amphibious landing craft was sent to support the Marines ashore during combat and humanitarian operations. I want to thank United States Navy Chief Photographer Stephen L. Cook for this photograph. Here are a list of events commemorating the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. A September 11th memorial service was started at 8:23 a.m. at the time that the attack was begun on the trade centers. And there's presently memorial services ongoing right now as we speak. This is a picture of New York. This is a picture of One Trade Center Plaza with the names of every person who perished in New York that day. Like I said, there are memorial events that started early this morning, and they will probably be ongoing through early tonight. The events are happening throughout Florida, Georgia, South and North Carolina, Virginia, Washington, New York, all over the country. When I was doing a disaster drill in Fallon, Nevada, Fallon, Nevada Police Department had been given a large piece of steel from the New York trade centers. There they honor the 9/11 victims in New York and in Pennsylvania. Tomorrow, I'm sorry, this was actually Saturday. Saturday, a Remembrance Day ceremony began at 8:30 a.m. and ended at 4:30 p.m. The Zephyr Museum of Military History hosted an event paying tribute to those lost their lives on September 11th and ensuing military operations. That museum will remain open today for your exploration, to find out what happened for yourself those days. I am grateful for each and every one of you. I was afraid I would have to chasten everybody at the beginning of this program. I was afraid people would be attacking President Bush, attacking our military, and attacking even those people that were on those planes that were killed. I've heard all kinds of stories for the last 22 years. And frankly, today, I didn't want to hear those, and I didn't. None of us did. And I want to thank all of you for that. There's a miniature flag planting tribute at 9:15 a.m. today. Students, faculty and staff, and other volunteers planted 2,977 miniature United States flags in the campus courtyard, a Sarasota Manatee school, to commemorate those that died on September 11th. Today, 9/11 Remembrance event began at 8:30 a.m. this morning, all over this country and many places across the world. If you go to any of these events, the events will feature speeches, patriotic moments and music, a moment of silence and a 21-gun salute. Go there with peace, harmony, and hope in your hearts. These events will be held at national cemeteries around the country. There's a lot of people that are going to great lengths to honor this day. In Palm Harbor, Florida, a 9/11 ceremony at 10 a.m. today. This service included words from the keynote speaker John Norman, retired Fire Department New York Deputy Assistant Chief, and 9/11 first responder. Curlew Hills will also share a pair of twin memorial light beams more than 1,000 feet in the sky on September 9th, 10th, and 11th from 8 to 10 p.m. You can find those memorial lights in New York City. You can also see those lights at Curlew Hills Memorial Gardens at 1750 Curlew Road, Palm Harbor, Florida. The 14th annual Honoring Our Heroes Remembering Day at 5:30 p.m. today. The Polk County Veterans Council is partnering with the Polk County Fire and law enforcement agencies to host a Freedom Walk honoring 9/11 Polk County first responders, paying tribute to those who lost their lives during the attacks. The walk will be followed by a service honoring the community's local heroes. If you want to run that race, the registration begins for that race at 4:30 p.m. I-35, 4th Street Northwest, Winter Haven, Florida. A lot is going to happen today. I will not be doing another program today. I want this to serve as a memorial to all of those who lost their lives on September 11th. My neighbor, the general, flew over my home on the afternoon of 9/11. He flew over my home and wagged his wings like this, letting me know it was him. The next evening, he came over to my home and we shared dinner together. He said that he had been in the air some 18 hours, which is unheard of. But nobody else was going to be in the air except the United States Air Force planes. I pay tribute to him and all the others, like I said, who honored our country, stood up to protect our country, and who lost their lives as a result of what happened on 9/11/2001. Brothers and sisters, this is just one more reason to be prepared for whatever happens. September is National Emergency Preparedness Month. I'm urging you all again to make sure you have a plan, an emergency preparedness plan for whatever emergency might happen to you in your town. It's easy to find out about those things that could happen. Go over to your fire department and ask them point blank, what emergencies and disasters could I face in my community and how can I prepare for those? And they will be happy to help you. Write a plan covering every kind of emergency that could happen to you in your individual area. Write a plan. Make a bug out plan and keep that in your emergency plans. Make out maps of 3 different routes that you're going to use to get to possibly even 3 different locations in case you have to bug out. If you're going to shelter in, include all that information you're going to need if you're going to shelter in your home during whatever emergency that might happen. Make sure you have emergency radios. I don't know how many times that I've shown you this radio. This is an AM/FM weather radio. It's got a solar panel up here that keeps this radio charged. I can also plug this into an outlet to keep this charged. This also has a wind-up device right here that I can wind it up and it'll play for several minutes. Okay? There's also a flashlight here. A flashlight. On this radio, it's not just AM/FM. This is a weather radio system as well, where you can tune to the National Weather Service frequency, 164.775 in my area. You can turn to that frequency and they will broadcast emergency information for you in your area, whether it be from the government or the National Weather Service during a weather emergency. These radios are invaluable. Someone asked me the other day, how much do they cost? I've seen AM/FM weather radios run from $9 all the way up to $49, depending on where you get it and what you get. But these things are invaluable. Okay? Two of the other things that I have urged you all to have. One is a handheld device, a family radio service radio. They're sold in pairs. You can get these at Target. You can get them at Walmart. If REI still exists, you can buy them at REI or any recreational outfit company. There are many recreational outfitters in every state that I've ever been in. You can get these radios. Any outdoor outfitter. I found these radios all over the country. Anywhere from 20 bucks a piece and that's for 2 radios, 20 bucks a piece on up to 50 bucks a piece. Okay? The other is this. Okay? This is a ham radio. I'm sorry. This is a ham radio. Folks, for as little as 29 to 30 bucks, you can buy one of these online, either through Amazon or Wish or whatever you use. These will become invaluable. These are ham radios. You can go to a ham radio class. You can go to Barnes & Noble or whatever bookstore you want and order a tech license test booklet that will teach you what you need to do, what you need to have in the way of knowledge to prepare to take a tech license test, to be able to operate this radio, to talk on the radio. You can carry it along as long as you want and listen to it, but you can't talk on it without a license. And in an absolute disaster, there's no ham radio operator around that will fault you for using this radio only for emergency communication. Only for emergency communication. Do not use these radios without a license unless it's an absolute emergency, and only use these radios to traffic information about your emergency. These are wonderful radios. Okay? Something else that I found invaluable as well. That is audio from one of my police scanners. It's a desktop police scanner. I also have a ham radio. This scanner scans ham radio frequencies, police and fire, and aircraft and marine frequencies. You can get these for as little as $100. In some places you'll pay more for it, depending on what you get. This is a handheld device. This is a fantastic device. I highly urge you all to get one of these. Okay? You hear my desktop police scanner? It's on the Weather Channel. 162.450. I'm sorry, I misspoke about the frequency. It's 162.450 in my area. Okay? I have that going all the time. Do you have any questions of me right now? Heather says those look exactly what I have. I hope so, Heather. I want you guys all to have things that will help protect yourselves. Deborah G, says here, I was just there at Liberty Park and it felt so surreal and so sad. I have not yet left here for a memorial service here in Morganton. They're going to do it this afternoon as well. I urge each and every one of you to attend a memorial service if you can. They're very spiritual and they'll tug at your heartstrings. I hope that happens. because that will help us prevent this terrible tragedy from ever happening again. Does anybody have any questions for me now? I want to thank each and every one of you for taking part in our memorial service for September 11th, 2001. I don't know anyone who doesn't remember where they were on that day. And already we have a new generation that were not even alive on that day. It's amazing. Hurricane Heather is asking, can we do a devotional? Yes, I believe we can do that, and we can do that right now. Brothers and sisters, we are loved by Heavenly Father. In the first epistle of John, John talks about saints gain fellowship with God by obedience. We must confess our sins to gain forgiveness. In verse 7, this is the kicker here. This is the one important verse for us today. But if we walk in the light, as He is in the light, we have fellowship one with another. And the blood of Jesus Christ, His Son, cleanses us from all sin. But if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sins, He is faithful and just to forgive our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. But if we say we have not sinned, we make Him a liar, and His word is not in us. Brothers and sisters, let us never put ourselves in a position where we make the Lord a liar. If we do that, we are in a position to condemn ourselves, and the Lord will turn His back on us. God be with you, everyone. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I have painstakingly took this opportunity to compile all of this information for you today. I wanted to make sure you understood what happened 22 years ago. A lot of people hurt. A lot of people hurt, and rightly so. It's up to us to remember who we are and why we're here, where we came from, and where we're going to go. God be with you this day and always. God be with you until we meet again. If anything else happens today, we will be back on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information becomes available. Like I said, at this point today, this is where we're at. I wanted to leave you this message because I believe in it. God be with you till we meet again. We will see you around the corner.